All right, so this is sort of an overview of converting between fractions and decimals and percentages. And what you'll find over the course of the next activities is that sometimes you will be given a number in a form. Maybe you get a number in fractional form and you want it to end up into a different form. Maybe you want to know what that is equivalent to as a percentage. Or maybe you start with a percentage and you want to turn it into a decimal. So you're going to be practicing and becoming fluent in converting between these three different ways of representing the same thing. So, what you'll see here, for instance, on this top example, is all of these ways right here are all equivalent. They have equivalent value, and they're all different just ways of showing the same things, different formats. So, say you start with a fraction. In order to convert it into a decimal, you'll need to divide the top number, the numerator, by the denominator. So you can set it up and say, all right, I'm going to take 3, I'm going to divide it by 4. And this is where it gets kind of fun because you go, what? It doesn't fit. Or in other words, it fits 0 times. So then you can say, oh, but is 3.0 the same value as 3? Yes, it is. So now I can transfer this little decimal up to the tip top up here into where we're going to put our quotient. And then we can say, oh, well, how many times does 4 fit into 30? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. Ooh, 32 is too much, so it fits 7 times, which is 28. So then when we subtract, we know 30 minus 28 gets us 2. We have a remainder, so we know we can keep going. So I'm going to plop in another 0, bring it down because 3.00 is the same value still as 3 with a different look. But now we can say, oh, well, how many times does 4 fit into 20? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Ah, it fits 5 times exactly. So 4 times 5 gets us 20, and we've got nothing left. There's nothing left over to divide, so we know that we have found the decimal of this fraction is 0.75 or 75 hundredths. So you'll see that here. You divided the numerator by the denominator. If you want to take that decimal and turn it into a percentage, you can simply multiply it by 100 because a percentage is per 100. And we'll get more into that in other videos. So in order to do that, you essentially whoop your decimal, whoop, whoop, 2 place value spots to multiply it by 10 and then by another 10. And you end up with 75 out of 100 or per 100, which is what this symbol here means. You can see there's another example here if you want to keep going, where say you start this time with a percentage, say you start with 40% and you want to get it back into a fraction form. Well, what you can do is you can undo it, right? You can essentially work backwards. So if you know that this is 40, it's really 40.0%. So I'm going to take that decimal and I'm going to divide it by 100, right? I'm going to undo that percent, that per 100, and our decimal moves over here. So you'll see we end up with 4D, you could call it 4D hundredths or 400 thousandths. But to simplify it, right, these zeros don't really hold any value. So we can simply call it 4 tenths. If you keep going and want to turn it into that fraction, well, you can say this out loud in fancy talk. We just said it as 4 tenths. 4 tenths can be written as a decimal, or as you say it out loud, it magically becomes a fraction. This can be simplified by dividing each by 2 since they are both even numbers. And all of a sudden, here we have our 2/5, which you see is represented over here as our fraction.